Full disclosure, this video is not an objective critic, I'm just some random French dude that decided for some reason to share his opinion on a few things, in English, because why not? If you disagree with me, feel free to say so, my opinion is not absolute. On the other hand, if you just don't like my takes,
I don't give a shit!
So, the first season of the Book of Boba Fett came out early 2022 and was announced as partially related to Mandalorian. Since I'm a pretty big fan of Star Wars but never took the time to watch season 2 of Mandalorian, I thought it could be a good idea to rewatch Mando season 1, then season 2, to finish with Boba Fett. I had some mixed feelings when I watched The Mandalorian for the first time, so it felt like a good idea to refresh my memory and take some notes while watching. And turns out, I'm still uncertain about it. And I definitely have problems with both Mandalorian and Boba Fett. So without further ado, let's dig in. If you haven't watched The Mandalorian, it's a show about a bounty hunter that everybody refers to as Mando, because he's part of a brotherhood of legendary fighters mostly recognizable by their armor, the Mandalorians. Nowadays, Mandalorians are mostly extinct after a genocide perpetrated by the Empire. We follow Mando after he broke the rules of the Bounty Hunters Guild to save Baby Yoda, a bounty that he had initially delivered to an Empire executive before changing his mind. This story then focuses on his fight to survive the constant chase of the Hunters Guild and the Empire that both want him dead and Baby Yoda captured. This show is pretty good. It's not the best, it has some issues, but it works just fine. Visually speaking, it's impressive, everything looks gorgeous. The use of LED walls to film the show really gave a fantastic look. They didn't use green screen, they actually created an environment before filming and projected it on giant LED walls while filming every scene, which is bloody brilliant but must be insanely expensive.
In partnership with ILM and Epic, we have put together a system whereby which we can have game engine, real-time render, and video wall technology coming together to create a backdrop for the big, beautiful world of Star Wars.
The costume and props are basically perfect, and the direction is simple but very efficient, which makes sense since Jon Favreau picked everyone who directed each episode and probably had his hands on the general tone of the project. There is a few moments that clearly have a more intense vibe, like that fully red scene in the prison, but overall it's pretty constant. My main problem with The Mandalorian Season 1 is simple. Most of the time, Mando is doing side quests. No, really, most of the time, what he is doing is not moving the plot forward at all. For example, the show really begins when he gets the mission to capture Baby Yoda. Okay, so he could just go right to it and capture Baby Yoda, right? Except they don't have his exact location, so he has to find clues as to where he is. So he goes on the planet where he meets Quill, a farmer that knows where to search and will help.
I will help you. I have spoken.
But to go there, he has to learn how to mount those weird biped fishes. So he does that and gets where Baby Yoda is. But he can't get to him because there are bandits. So he goes to fight the bandits, but there is IG-11, a bounty hunter droid that wants the bounty as well. So he has to work with it before eventually killing it.
The asset was to be terminated.
Once he gets Baby Yoda, he can deliver. But he can't leave the planet because Jawas took apart his ship. So to get the pieces back, he has to get something for the Jawas. To get that thing for the Jawas, he has to fight a Mudhorn. After that, he finally gets his pieces back, but still has to reassemble the ship. Now we can finally deliver, but since it took a lot of time, the bounty is now public and there are other hunters that attack him to get the bounty for themselves, which forces him to fight his way back to the client. Do you see how many steps it took? And that's pretty much every episode. If you take away those side quests steps, every episode would last barely 10 minutes. For the capture of Baby Yoda, let's imagine he has the exact coordinates. He arrives before IG-11, can take by surprise the bandits, clear the place, get Baby Yoda and leave. Because if he didn't leave his ship without surveillance for days, the Jawas wouldn't have destroyed it, so he wouldn't have to do something for them to get it back. And because it wouldn't have taken so long, he wouldn't have bounty hunters on his ass the entire duration of the journey back to the client. That is my main problem with the show. The side quest steps are in almost every episode, which makes sense, don't get me wrong, and they are justified in a way by the fact that we follow a bounty hunter, so he gotta do some bounty hunting from time to time, but sometimes you really feel like the show isn't going anywhere. Fortunately, it doesn't last that long because they were smart enough to only have 8 episodes a season and not have the classical format of 40-minute plus an episode that forces you to make things go slower if you have less to say in one episode. And besides, even if it's mostly side quest, it isn't necessarily unpleasant. It still looks and sounds gorgeous, the characters are pretty interesting, and the universe is awesome anyway, so exploring a little more feels pretty good. But there is one scene though. One scene that actually took me completely out of the show. It's the beginning scene of the season finale. That scene was funny, but at the same time it felt weird. So out of tone in fact that I knew it had to be from someone completely different. And turns out I was right. The episode was directed by Taika Waititi, and I love his humor in general.
Thor, son of Odin.
Sasa, son of a bitch, you're still alive.
But there it really felt misplaced. Like it simply didn't belong. Plus, it officially confirmed that troopers can't aim for shit, which I know is a recurrent joke in the fanbase, but is not supposed to be real. Remember what Ben said in A New Hope?
And these last points, too accurate for sand people. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise.
That entire sketch is funny in itself, but in the big context of Star Wars, you can't completely disregard previously established things to simply be funny. Yes, we've seen at many occasions that troopers shot somehow always missed, but it was never established clearly that they can't hit a freaking can 5 meters away in 20 shots. You know why? Because then why would I ever feel any tension here, or even there? If it is a rule in your universe that those enemies will never be able to hit you, why would I be concerned about you being surrounded by an army of those? And that was especially the case since right after that scene, Mando and Co are surrounded by troopers. The completely non-threatening troopers that would still manage to miss if your forehead was touching the tip of their blasters. But anyway, that season was pretty enjoyable and I came enthusiastically to Season 2. Season 2 felt a little better in terms of side questing. Yes, those are still very much a thing, but it felt like more important things were happening in the middle of it. Non-exhaustive list of things that happened in Season 2. Mando helped a village defeat a sand dragon. He gets the armor of Boba Fett. He helped some derp-faced lizard get her egg back to her mate. At least those that Baby Yoda didn't hate.
No. That is not food.
And had a little remake of the Forbidden Forest scene in Chamber of Secret. Met other Mandalorians that do take their helmets off, had Baby Yoda do a Baby Groot scene.
Away from each other. Make sure you hold them apart from... No, hold them apart. Are you okay?
Repeat back what I just said.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I am Groot.
That's right.
I am Groot.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone!
Put Baby Yoda in a school while he blew an Empire base up, met and fought with Ahsoka, learned that Baby Yoda's name is Grogu, met Boba Fett and gave his armor back, lost Grogu to Moff Gideon who's staying in a butt-plugged shapeship, I mean, am I the only one that sees this? Got his ship blown to bits, took off his helmet in front of Bill Burr, defeated Moff Gideon in one-on-one combat, becoming the new rightful owner of the Darksaber.
It's yours now.
What is?
The Darksaber. It belongs to you. She can't take it. It must be won in battle. In order for her to wield the Darksaber again, she would need to defeat you in combat.
And finally gave Grogu to Luke Skywalker, who came to save everybody's ass at the last minute in an insanely cool fight scene. isn't much more to say about Season 2, it's the continuity of Season 1. It feels better because more important things are happening and Mando actually accomplishes his mission this season, but it's still the same formula. Visuals are still amazing, the sound design is still on point, special shout out to the big return of sonic waves. And yeah, I didn't mention it earlier, but the sound of Mando's rifle is orgasmic. I would say it's a little better than Season 1 because the rhythm is more dynamic, but there isn't much gigantic changes. The only couple of bad things that I have to say about that season are first of all that deepfake look face. I mean, it's not as bad as Leia in Rogue One, but still it's not good looking. And second is that Dark Trooper musical theme. What the hell is that? It sounds like some dubstep remix of a theme that was given up on halfway through. It's not necessarily bad, but if you listen to that, do you think Star Wars? Because I sure as hell don't. Oh yeah, and I have a little problem with Ahsoka's design. I mean, she looks amazing, but her likus are definitely supposed to be way longer than this. I mean, we've seen Togruta before. This is Ahsoka's race, and we know roughly how their anatomy works. And those weird tails that they have dropping on their shoulders are called liku, and those keep growing up to adulthood to reach roughly waistline. There, Ahsoka basically has the same liku length that when she was 14, even though she is like 45 now. Come on, that was almost perfect, why didn't you thought about that? Yeah, I know, it's a nitpick, but it's this kind of details that the fans are going to look for and that could take them out of what you're trying to give them with your show. Anyway, that season was great and the episode in which we see Boba Fett was pretty cool, so I thought his show had a lot of potential and went to watch it while being pretty hyped up. I was wrong to be hyped. Quick summary, the show takes place in two different temporalities. The first and main one is prison time. Boba is trying to gain the respect of the different powers in place in Mos Espa as the new Jabba. We follow him through the different scheming and assassination attempt, things like that. He is assisted by Fennec, that Asian sniper chick from Mandalorian, the group of Power Rangers.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
And that big ass Wookiee. The second temporality is composed of flashbacks of when Boba got out of the Sarlacc pit. He got captured by Tusken Raiders, then adopted by them, it's kinda weird, eventually got them all involuntarily killed, got his suit back from Mando and killed Bib Fortuna to get on Jabba's throne. The Book of Boba Fett is a very flawed show. I'm gonna start with what's good because it's not that much. Like in Mandalorian, visually speaking it's impressive. The only real problem is that it's just Tatooine. In Mandalorian you really felt like you were traveling. Desert, ice, dry dirt, calcinated, forest, prison, stations, water. There was quite the amount of different landscapes. Here you have Mos Espa and the desert. Yeah, that's pretty much it. When Mando gets in, we see a few better looking and more original places, but I'll go back on Mando in a second. The sound design is still amazing, whether it being speeder, ship, weapons, Bantas, Tusken Raiders or Rancors. Everything sounds amazing. That's it, that's the good things. Now let's go with the bad ones. Everything about Boba Fett is incredibly bland. It's never particularly interesting, it's not boring per se, but it's just meh. First of all, the character is probably one of the less interesting aspects of the show, which is ironic considering that this show was made entirely to talk about this very character. He went from the cool, silent, mysterious, threatening figure to a tired old man that gets his ass handed to him every episode and spends more time in a regenerative pod than wearing his helmet. He constantly tries to intimidate his opponent but never really does anything else. So he just gets laughed at pretty much constantly.
No one respects you.
It seems like they didn't really know what to do with the character. Do we go with the badass and powerful figure? Or do we go with the broken icon that slowly gets back to his previous self? Don't know, let's do both at the same time and see what happens. Spoiler!
It doesn't work that way!
And the fact that he has a crew doesn't actually help. Fennec is badass, she does pretty much everything. She's smart, strong, doesn't hesitate to kill and give actually good advice to Boba. Of course he doesn't listen to the advice, but at least she's here to give you hope from time to time. Basically, she's efficient so that Boba doesn't have to. The Power Rangers are embarrassing. First of all, well, I mean, look at them. They are freaking teenagers riding colorful Vespas and whining about how hard life is. I thought I was in a galaxy far, far away, not on Twitter. The two pigs are here. They don't really matter, and there is that Wookiee that tries to kill Boba, but yet gets recruited afterwards. He's pretty strong as well, but doesn't really do much except be there and look intimidating. Boba loses pretty much all his fights, gets saved by the crew, and sleeps in the regenerative pods. That's pretty much it. You wanted the badass Boba Fett? Well, you got the tired grandpa that needs a nap every time he spends 5 minutes walking in the sun. Episode 5 and 6 are basically episodes of Mandalorian, which is a great thing for the Mandalorian fans, but not a good thing for the Book of Boba Fett, because when the most interesting episodes in your show are the episodes that focuses on the side quest of a side character, it's saying something about the overall level of investment in your main story. Especially since when you have Mando on screen, everything is basically better. Fight scenes are nervous and intense, the charisma is here, the story is going somewhere, and of course you instinctively compare Mando to Boba. Mando is cool, mysterious, powerful. His first scene, we see him take on a dozen of hostiles by himself and finishing the fight with only one wound. That wound he gave himself with the Darksaber because he is still not used to it. And even after almost cutting off his own leg, he doesn't go in a medipod. He finishes the job and then goes to his fellow Mandalorians to get some bandages. On the other hand, you have Boba. Boba, who takes off his helmet half the time even for fight scenes, doesn't do much except getting bodied, leave the heavy lifting to Fennec and crawl into his pod. He really feels like a secondary character in his own show. He never really takes a decision when people disrespect or try to kill him, he simply lets them go without punishing them. And even when the crime lords betray him, which was obviously going to happen, who actually believed that they would honor their word, he doesn't get them killed. Fennec does. She takes it upon herself to kill them all because Boba didn't even thought about it. If she had not, they would have gotten away with betraying the guy that was once the most feared bounty hunter of the galaxy. The saddest part in all of this is Episode 7. That big fight that opposes Mando and Boba to an army of mercenaries is cool. That fight scene starts amazingly, Mando and Boba side by side taking on 100 of hostile, Boba being actually even more deadly than Mando with the hidden weapons in every articulation of his suit. That was badass. And the Rancor riding was also great. It would have been better if it wasn't announced 2 episodes prior, but still.
I want to learn to ride this one.
But even that scene quickly becomes meh. It's lasting forever, 17 minutes of uninterrupted blaster shooting and explosion. Every part of it lasts too long. You have every character having its little moment and adding stupid things. Why are you doing a 360? Why? And the violence level is reduced to the minimum to make sure you can have that Peggy 13. You have a Rancor in the middle of the streets fighting an army and you don't have one dismembering? Same for that scene with the lizard gorilla thing in the desert. You have an alien that looks like Goro and it doesn't rip anyone in half? Even JoJo in Supergirl did it better and I can't believe I just said that. That show has no idea who is it for. Is it for the new viewers? Clearly not. It has too much fan service and references to be for new viewers. So it's for old fans? Not really, no. Old fans never wanted Boba to be like this. So it's for kids? Still not, since the things discussed like corruption, politics, crime lords, war, genocides are definitely not kid-oriented. But on the other hand, characters like the Power Rangers are definitely not for adults, and the action scenes are tuned down to the minimum violence possible to make sure kids can watch it too. So I'm lost. In the end, the best way I can describe my problem with the Book of Boba Fett is simple. This show is useless. When Disney announced that they were going to make Star Wars TV shows, most people wanted Obi-Wan, which will soon come out, and from the looks of it, it's gonna be a bait and switch. And some wanted Boba Fett. Quickly, the TV show on the bounty hunter turned into an original one called The Mandalorian, and even though I have some issues with it, people had to admit that it worked. It was doing the job, people liked it, loved it even. It had a very special vibe to it, and for those that were disappointed by Disney's new trilogy, it felt good to have quality content again. Of course, the hype around the next adventure of Mando and Grogu kept on building, and Disney announced that they were working on the spin-off Boba Fett. Unfortunately, the good Boba Fett show, well, it's The Mandalorian, and they should have just stick to that and maybe have Boba as a guest from time to time, but no, instead they made a show focused on him. But every good things about Boba Fett is already on The Mandalorian, so what is there left to say in this show? No one cares that Boba got adopted by Tusken Raiders, or that he helped a group of teenagers with Vespas, or that he struggled to become the new daimyo. It's not important. The charisma of the character came from his mysterious aura. We knew nothing from him, which was what made people fascinated. And if The Mandalorian completely embraced that idea, revealing more about its mysterious character bits by bits, the Book of Boba Fett basically subverts the viewer's expectation by making Boba feel like an open book, completely stripped of secrets, mysteries. He is accessible and in the end, pretty uninteresting. It is no surprise that the best part of this show is the one focused on Mando and Grogu. So much in fact that some people believe that the writers had some scene written for Mando, Grogu, Luke and Ahsoka, but that it was too much to put in Season 2, but not enough to start Season 3. So they wrote the Book of Boba Fett quickly to have an excuse to get 2 more episodes of Mandalorian. And honestly, I think that theory is pretty valid. That explains why the consequences of Mando taking off his helmet is only addressed here. It also explains why we see Grogu training with Luke and his choice to go back to Mando here and not in The Mandalorian. So yeah, if you haven't watched the Book of Boba Fett, but you don't want to feel left out by The Mandalorian Season 3, I can only advise you to watch the last 3 episodes of this show, since those are the one important for the timeline of Mandalorian. But unless you have time to waste, I can't suggest you to watch the rest of the Book of Boba Fett. It's not terrible, but it's just not worth the time. The second temporality is composed of flashbacks of when Boba got out of the. There isn't much more to say about Season 2. It's the continuity of Season 1. It feels better because a little more things are important. Shit. There isn't much more to say about Season 2. It's the continuity of Season 1. It feels better because a little more important things happens and why am I having trouble? The only 2 real bad things that I have to say about that season are, first of all, that deep look, look is so deep. Season 2 felt a little better in terms of side questing. Yes, those are still. The only 2 real bad things that I have to say about this. Fuck!